Hi everyone, welcome back to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is on triangles. So an important thing to remember about triangles is that every triangle has 6 components, and basically a triangle has 3 sides and 3 angles. So you can have any triangle and you'll see that in your triangle you have 3 sides and these here are your angles. Okay? So there are different types of triangles and they have names based on their sides and their angles. So the first type of triangle is a scalene triangle. And a scalene triangle is one where none of the sides are equal. So for example, you could have something like the following: 2 centimeters, 5 centimeters, and 3 centimeters. So we could say none of the sides are equal. Okay? So none of the sides are equal. So an example could be something that where one side is 2 centimeters, one is 5, and one is 3. Okay? Another type of triangle is an acute triangle. Acute triangles are ones in which all the angles are acute, which means they are all less than 90. So all angles are less than 90 degrees. So an example of that could be the following. Maybe this angle is 59 degrees, this one's 54 degrees, and this is 67 degrees. Now, a general rule to remember when you're dealing with triangles is that all of the sides of a triangle, all of the angles of a triangle, so angle A plus B plus C equals to 180 degrees. And that's a general rule. So for every single triangle, the angles, when you add them up, always have to equal to 180, or else it's not a triangle, what you're looking at, okay? So if it's a triangle, all the angles have to equal to 180. To 180 degrees, okay? So for an acute triangle, we have all angles are less than 90 degrees. So an example could be like the following, where you've got one angle of 59 degrees, one of 54, and one of 67. So that's a different type of triangle. And then we've got isosceles triangles. Isosceles triangles have 2 equal sides. And 2 equal angles. Okay, so for example, an isosceles triangle, you could have the following: 3 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and 4 centimeters, something like this. And for example, 74 degrees for one angle, 53 degrees, and 53 degrees. So if these two sides are the same, then these two angles would be the same measure. So for an isosceles, we've got 2 sides having the same measure, and the third side would be different. And then we've also got equilateral triangles. So for equilateral triangles, we have all 3 sides being equal. So 4 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and 4 centimeters. All sides are equal. And that would also mean that all 3 angles would be equal. So you'd have 60 degrees, 60 degrees, and 60 degrees. So all sides and all angles would be equal for an equilateral. So that's why it's called an equilateral triangle. And as you remember, all the angles have to add up to 180 degrees. And then finally, we have a right triangle. So a right triangle is one which has a right angle in it. So it had one angle of 90 degrees, and this is called a right, I should have said right triangle, I think I said right angle, but it has a right angle. A right triangle is one that has one of the angles is a right angle. So one angle is a right angle, the other ones would be different measures. Okay, and then finally we've got obtuse triangles. In obtuse triangles you have one angle which is larger than 90 degrees. So an abnormally large angle for your obtuse triangle. So an example of an obtuse triangle could be one where you've got one of the angles as 127 degrees, and then the other two angles would be different measures. And that's an obtuse, that's an obtuse, one angle larger than 90 degrees. So that's an obtuse triangle. Okay, so those are the different types of triangles. So as I was mentioning before, a rule that you have to always remember about triangles is that when you add up the angles of the triangle, they equal to 180 degrees. That's really important to remember. This holds for every single triangle. It doesn't matter what type of triangle you are dealing with. It could be a right one or an obtuse. They all add up. All of the angles, theta, all of the angles will always add up to 180 degrees. And as you know, for a right triangle, one of the angles is a right angle, and we represent, in mathematics, we represent right angles with a little box. That symbol is always used to represent a 90-degree angle, or also referred to a right angle. And so in a right triangle, you will have the other two angles equaling to obviously 90 degrees because, 90, because this one's already 90. So when you add these and these, you're going to get 180. So when you add these two, you get 90 degrees, okay? So you could have different examples where you're asked to evaluate or figure out the sides, missing sides in a triangle. For example, if you were given the following triangle, and you were given two of the angles, and you were asked to find, say, the third angle, you would just take 180 and subtract 37 and 48 degrees, and that would give you your answer for alpha, which would be 95 degrees. Okay, so alpha would equal 180 minus the other two, and then alpha would finally equal to 95 degrees. If you were given, say, another example where you had something like the following, you were just given one angle, 52 degrees, but then you were shown that these two sides are the same. When you see that situation, because you're dealing with a, should be an isosceles. Nope, not an isosceles, sorry. Yeah, isosceles. So you've got an isosceles triangle, so two of the sides are the same. So that would mean that these two angles here, alpha and beta, are actually equal to each other. So you could figure this out in the following way. So 180 minus 52 would give you 128. And then you would take that answer and divide it by 2, and that would give you your each of these, because they're the same. So you know that altogether they add up to 180. So 180 minus 52 would give you the sum of these two, and because these two are equal, they would actually you would just take the value and divide it by 2, because they're equal to each other. So the sum of them is 128, so each one is 64 degrees. Okay, the next type, we're going to do one more example. So say you were given something like the following, and you had 60 degrees, and alpha, and this would be x and y and 3 meters. So here, this is obvious because this here, okay, not so obvious, sorry. Now what you would do is find alpha first. So alpha would be 180 minus 60 and 60, which would give you 60 degrees. So at this point, you notice that you've got 3 of the same angles. So that would make you realize that you've got an equilateral triangle here. Therefore, the 3 sides should also be equal. So x would be equal to y, which would also be equal to 3 meters. So that's how you would solve that one. Okay. So, and there's lots of different examples, but you have to really keep in mind if you're dealing with a right triangle, an obtuse triangle, like what type of triangle you're dealing with, or if you're dealing with an isosceles or an equilateral. And once you have that information, you can figure out, the missing sides or the missing angles in your triangle. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the lesson, everyone. So that was a lesson on triangles.